The other day, I discovered a Guardian article online by a feminist called Julie Bindel. Frankly, the article is complete trash. It is bigoted defamation of the male sex. The fact this stuff can get published shows you what second-class citizens men are. Anyway, we might as well take a look at this article, and I will react to it. Then I will look at a couple of the comments left on the article. Then I will talk about how men should be reacting to type of man-hating trash the Guardian publishes.
Obama's right, women are superior to men. Let me count the ways. Julie Bindel, from washing up to driving to major operations, were evidently more competent than men, because patriarchy has forced us to be.
Of course!
Women are much safer drivers, causing fewer accidents and being more likely to survive the serious crash.
Of course.
As a lifelong feminist, I have always balked at the idea that women might be better than men because it perpetuates the myth that women and men are polar opposites.
Of course, she is not going to contradict herself here and attack men and claim they are inferior due to gender stereotypes. A feminist would never do anything like that, right?
And that our skills, or lack of them, is to do with innate qualities rather than as a result of socialization or opportunity. This particular competition of who is best at what further ingrains the false belief that the battle of the sexes is here for time. The reality is that after thousands of years of living under patriarchy, through no choice or fault of our own, women have developed certain skills as a result of this tyranny.
Of course!
A feminist friend once remarked that if oppression made one a better person, there would be something to be said for it. And while I agree wholeheartedly with this, the truth is that we have had to become far better than men at most things.
Of course! Of course!
We beat men at raising money from crowdfunding.
Men have always handed money over to women. Men hand money over to cam whores all the time. Studies have shown that men have an out-group bias towards women and like women better than men. Women also have an in-group bias too. So of course people are going to be more willing to hand money over to women. You know what, fuck this. I am not going to seriously debunk this resent-filled dribble coming from this feminist scob.
Which is just as well because we are paid less for doing the same job.
Of course! Of course! Of course!
According to a recent study, women cope far better than men under pressure.
Of course! Of course! Of course!
No wonder, we are often under it. Not only do we have institutionalized oppression and discrimination to deal with.
Of course! 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 Of course!
But under this system, men become lazy and complacent.
Of course!
As Barack Obama argues, women make better bosses and leaders because men seem to be having some problems these days.
Do you feel in charge?
To clarify what I think Obama means, women have long had massive problems with male bosses and leaders because so many of them can't keep it in their zippers.
Of course.
And seem to hold the attitude that women can do their jobs and be sexually harassed and assaulted at the same time.
Of course! Of course! Of course! Of course! Of course! Of course!
Talk about multitasking, which incidentally, we are also better at than men.
Of course! 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 Of course!
Women even fare better in those jobs traditionally thought of as for the boys.
Of course!
A study published this year in the British Medical Journal found that women make better surgeons than their male counterparts, and that 4% fewer patients die following an operation performed by a woman.
How many times have I linked to that Daily Mail article? showing that training female doctors over male doctors has created a crisis in the NHS. The lack of self-awareness coming from this anti-male bigot is shocking. I really can't bring myself to debunk her garbage claims.
We beat men at raising money from crowdfunding, which is just as well because we are paid less for doing the same job. A report published in Fortune found that globally, women are consistently more successful than men in reaching funding targets.
Of course! Of course! Of course! Of course!
In terms of self-care, we even do that better. More than half, 53%, of women will talk through problems with friends compared with only 29% of men according to a survey by the mental health charity Mind.
When women have problems, that is proof of patriarchy, and the fact women are systematically oppressed. When men have problems, that is just proof men are shit and are subhumans, and their problems are just self-inflicted.
And women are much safer, and therefore more skilled, drivers, causing fewer accidents and being more likely to survive the serious crash.
Of course!
We are less likely to abandon our children.
This is just a barefaced lie. Women drop their children off in care, and put them up for adoption far more than men. Also, fatherlessness is caused by women pushing fathers away from their kids. Blaming men for fatherlessness is like blaming a rape victim for rape. By the way, men do not have children, since men do not have rights as fathers. Women can't deny fathers' rights, then complain fathers are not there for their kids. Fuck it, not going to waste my time debunking this nonsense. I will do a video on fathers' rights some other time. The fact a feminist has the nerve to say this dehumanizing lie against men is pretty outrageous though.
And therefore make better parents.
Better at child abuse, better at child neglect, and better at child murder. Women are better parents in those fields.
Of course!
Our washing up and general cleaning skills are far more honed.
Of course!
We have had loads more practice. Cooking, ditto. Laundry, ditto. While men love to brag about boys' food, meaning massive burgers and slabs of greasy protein, women are more likely to have the recommended 5 a day.
Of course! Of course!
I would hazard a guess that those men sucking up the carrot juice and quinoa as opposed to burger and chips do so because women prepare it for them.
It is called using a blender, you bigot. It takes no skill to prepare stuff like that. Listening to this woman is making my head hurt.
Ah, I hear some men cry over the sound of scraping at the bottom of a barrel. We are better at DIY than you are. But even men's practical skills are diminishing, as they get lazier and more complacent.
Of course!
A survey carried out by a bathroom firm found that women are increasingly likely to get on with tasks such as fixing a leaky tap, fixing the toilet, hanging wallpaper, and sealing windows rather than hanging around waiting for the man of the house to drain his lager, switch off the football, and move his backside into action.
Of course!
But here is the rub. Women tend to be better than men at so many things because we have no choice.
DFKLJS DFLKJS DLFJL DJFKLS I am losing my mind.
Yes, we are better at washing up, but only because we do it way more often than men.
Of course!
This state of affairs self-perpetuates our oppression, highlighted by ridiculous scenarios such as restaurants advertising for female washer-uppers because men are rubbish at it.
Those men are being discriminated against due to gender stereotypes. When women are proven failures at a field, you are not allowed to discriminate against them using that fact as a pretext. If a company did that, they would be sued.
Boys are privileged from the moment they are born.
Except companies can discriminate against them for employment, it seems. You just admitted that yourself 5 seconds ago. By the way, do I have to even mention circumcision? Anyone who says boys are privileged the moment they are born is full of shit. Also, this feminist is showing hostile resentment against helpless baby boys. Pretty disgusting if you ask me.
The fact that girls often exceed them in so many ways is testimony to the fact that patriarchy is really not up to much after all.
Anyway, let's look at a few comments in reply to this filthy man-hating article. The main purpose of this video is to analyze the comments, not the article itself. I just put the article in the video to provide context for the comments.
Malcolm Potter, December 6, 2017, 10:07. Can't we just be complimentary to each other, rather than trying to bash each other over the head all the time? Why do you feel the need to be so relentlessly aggressive?
This first comment I am looking at is submissive groveling. The feminist who wrote this article has just defamed men in a mainstream media publication. The person who left the comment is reacting by begging to be complimentary with women. Also, when Malcolm says, "Can't we just be complimentary to each other?" rather than trying to bash each other over the head all the time, he is implying that there is some sort of mutual aggression between the sexes going on. Why is he doing this? There is no two-way aggression going on between the sexes. There is no mainstream articles in the media being published calling women shit, and dehumanizing them. Let's look at a reply to this groveling comment by a feminist. I want to show how useless this groveling and begging for mercy to feminists is.
Felicia Farrell. Why do you feel the need to be so relentlessly aggressive? That's one of the funniest things I've read for a while, considering the oh-so-loving, caring and wholly bunny rabbitish behavior of the male of the species since the first woman was hit over the head with a club and carried back to a cave.
You see what that groveling comment gets? It just leads to more dehumanization of men using crude false stereotypes. The caveman hitting women over the head stereotype is from comedy sketches, for God's sake. If you grovel to feminists for mercy, you might as well be a Jew begging Nazis to knock off the anti-Semitism, and ask them nicely to get along with you. If men act submissive and weak to women, women will smell blood and double down on their attacks, to extend their social dominance.
Sister, we men were programmed to hunt game and bash the heads in of hostile tribes. Women were programmed to gather goods and raise families. The fact is, our very basic skills are redundant or destructive, or both. Theirs are still very relevant. Time we handed over the trousers.
This comment uses tradcon-style lazy biological reductionism to dehumanize men. Men played their part in socializing children, most likely a much greater and more important part than women. Single mothers do raise badly socialized children after all. Men in the past were not just out bashing in the heads of other tribes all the time. They were in the tribe playing their part, raising the kids. Sosta seems to hold the tradcon belief that women have magical female nurturing skills. Women are somehow magical around children, while men are just subhumans. I showed this comment to highlight the fact that tradcon-style biological reductionism is anti-male, and can backfire on men. Left-wing men and women will use biological reductionism against men, using it as a pseudo-scientific pretext to make up false assertions about men and women. Men were not just subhuman enforcers and resource gatherers in the past. Men are social animals just like women are. How should men respond to anti-male defamation by feminists in mainstream articles? I think the YouTuber's Bane 666 strategy is a proven failure. Doing a 60-part response series to feminists is not going to shut feminists up. Pointing out their obvious bullshit point by point is not going to achieve much. In fact, it can come across as submissive, as if men are trying to explain to feminists why men are really not scum. It is a bit like begging the master to lay off the whip a little bit. Entering a discourse with feminists and expecting things to change is not going to really work. Sure, debunking feminists has a purpose. It helps show other people that it is allowed for people to push back against feminist lies, yet it will do nothing to stop feminist attacks on men. Debunking feminists is not completely useless, but merely only a first step men must take. Feminists quite frankly have to pay a price for their attacks against men. Debunking someone who is attacking you will not stop them attacking you. Men seem to tune out and not take female aggression seriously. There has to be pushback against feminism. There has to be boycotts of mainstream articles that publish feminist propaganda, especially vicious articles attacking and dehumanizing the male sex. The Guardian not only needs to be boycotted, it needs to be picketed by men. People must be encouraged to boycott The Guardian. They must try and make the editor of The Guardian publicly apologize for their misandry, and they must be made to sack all feminists working in the company. The MRM is too fixated on relationships, too fixated on responding to feminists and proving a point to them. There is no point to be proved to feminists. Feminists are bigots that need silencing. Feminists are scum that just flat out hate men. And in a modern civilized society, no demographic should be targeted for hate. Black people do not deserve to live in a world where the KKK gets to publish mainstream newspaper articles. Jews do not deserve to live in a world where anti-Semites get invited onto radio shows and talk about the problems of Jewish privilege. Men by the same token should not have to live in the world where feminist trash is seen as mainstream and acceptable. Men should not have to tolerate the unrelenting attacks on their self-esteem. Boys should not have to grow up in a feminist society listening to anti-male garbage. When I grow my channel, I plan to organize a boycott of The Guardian, simply because it is not acceptable for them to attack men. Nutty women like Julie Bindel should be a fringe, relegated to some obscure corner of the internet ranting on some forum somewhere, not getting published in a mainstream newspaper. Men do not speak up, they just take abuse and ridicule from females passively. This will encourage women and anti-male men only to attack men even more. Social change will only come if men draw a line in the sand somewhere.
Of course.